Okay, so now we're on step 17, and step 17 is all about the motor itself, so our Tamiya motor. We have to attach the pinion gear, and the pinion gear is attached to the shaft of the motor using and tightening down with a grub screw, a very small grub screw, and there's also this plate that we need to, the motor plate. You may recall back in step 7 we made our choices about the gear ratios for our Subaru Brat, and you may recall I chose to do the high speed option, so that was the 49 tooth spur and the 19 tooth pinion. So this is what we need to do. We need to attach this onto our motor now. The kit comes with Allen keys, but again, with my kit that I have a screwdriver set from Tamiya. You may wish to have this particular tool set. It's very handy if we're going to build many of the kits and maintain the kits. This is a Tamiya kit that you can get from most of the Tamiya retailers in the UK. It's item 74085, and it is effectively a set of tools. So you get your screwdrivers, your nut spinners, your Allen keys, and you actually get a handle, extra handle for the leverage as well. It's a very handy kit, and it helps when you're building, less fatigue. So yeah, you may want to if you wish. I'll pop a link for this in the description. So let's do step 7. So we need to pop on our motor plate. There we are. It's a case of just sliding that over. It slides over. Tight fit. There we are. We need to make sure that the holes of the motor plate line up with the holes of the motor for later on. So there we are, our genuine Tamiya motor. We need to make sure that we use the correct pinion that we chose back in step 7. There's our pinion, and this sits onto the motor, and we've got our very tiny grub screw, a 3mm by 3mm grub screw. I don't know my little fat fingers. I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'll show you this on the drawing with a pair of tweezers. Help me grab that. There we are. See, there we are. So again, how I go about this, as I've got them, you would use the Allen key from the kit. I would just pop the Allen key onto the grub screw. Make sure that the motor is, the grub screw goes on the motor. Let's pop this motor up there. I don't know if the camera will pick this out. There's a flat surface. So that's where the grub screw is going to locate. So you pop the pinion onto the motor. Again, make sure you don't cross thread. Just gently screw that in. And that is effectively the step. But we also have to make sure that we set it to the correct distance, and the diagram says 16.5mm from the motor plate. So that's what we're going to check next, and I'm just going to do that. I'm going to also pop a little bit of thread lock on this grub screw, just to make sure it doesn't vibrate out. You don't have to, it doesn't say in the drawing, but it's just a little extra safety that we do. So I'm going to do that. Okay, so that's what we're going to do next. So as an experiment here on the motor, as you can see on my digital vernier, I've set this to 16.5mm, and I've now set from the motor plate to the end of the pinion the 16.5mm. Just as curiosity, I just want to see how accurate this is. Let's offer this into our chassis, into our gearbox. I haven't thread locked it yet, I'm going to do that in a moment, but I just want to offer it into the gearbox and have a look and see how that gear meshes into the car. It's me again being my accurate self. It's just curiosity, really. I just want to see. So this is going to pop our motor through the hole, and we need to see how that lines with the pinion. So, you know, see, I think in terms of, I don't know if the camera is picking this out. In terms of the pinion, so the pinion being pulled tight, I'm just sort of trying to pull that tight. Do you know what? I do think that's somewhere there. That is actually very accurate of Tamiya. That is literally that's literally gear meshing properly. Wow, I thought it would be out. There's a little bit of play on the pinion itself, but do you know what? That is absolutely spot on of Tamiya. And again, just that Japanese quality and Japanese accuracy. And you can see why they're renowned for it. They're actually spot on, absolutely spot on. Amazing, amazing. It was a good little experiment just to see. There you are. Just goes to show you, they have got it exactly right. So yeah, here you go. So I've got a little bit on there. That's all I need. You just need a little tiny bit to come through. There we go. I have to excuse the little thump that you heard in the background. That was the cat jumping in through the top window, bless him. And now we're going to pop through onto the motor pinion gear again, and we're going to pop that through onto the motor, and we're now going to set it to the 16.5 millimeters that Tamiya say, because it is absolutely spot on and correct. I'm just going to turn my caliper on. I'm just going to pop that thing. I think it needs to come in a little bit. So just need to come in a little bit. There we go. Just nip that up a bit and bring that measurement back in. Yeah, I think we're there. And again, I don't know if the camera's picking this out, but I'm just using the jaws from the motor plate to the edge of the pinion, and I'm just going to put my finger there, and it's level. So I'm happy with that. Pinion is now in its correct place. I'm now going to there we go, that's nice and tight as well, and a little bit of the excess of the lock thread there, locking thread, and there we go. There we are. So that is step 17 complete. Okay, so now we are on step 18, and we're going to need, for step 18, we're going to need the screws from bag A. These are the 4mm by 12mm. They're quite a hefty screw, and you'll see, again, line them up from the drawing, and you can see from the drawing they're silver in colour, so the drawing is clear, so that shows you that they are the silver coloured ones. We're also going to need 2 of the BB1s from bag B, so these are 3mm by 30mm, and again, just offer them up onto the drawing, and you can see there we are. There's again this clear, so that indicates they're the silver type. From parts tree A, we're going to need A1, which is here. From parts tree C, we're going to need C12, which is the motor cover. and of course from step 17, our motor. We now need to screw that to the chassis. So we're going to bring the chassis into shot here for us, and hopefully this will come into shot for us. Yeah, and I'm just going to move the page so just so you can see here in this step that we've got this is going to be part of the battery cover, so we need to make sure it's orientated correctly. They're both the same, and no, there we are. So you've got this section here that sticks out, make sure it's orientated, and that's going to stick onto screw onto those, as they're going to be quite large screws, and they're quite going into some tough chassis plastics. We're going to put the high torque handle on our Tamiya screwdriver, line those up there, and get some threads going on there. What I do, why it's loose, I'm going to prop the other one on as well, and so that it just makes it a little bit easier to find the hole. There we go. And then hold the chassis nice and tight, and then torque those through. Again, don't go too mad, and torque them down nice and individual. There we are. That's good. I'm just going to see if I can lift that up so it stops the vibration on the table and to the camera, which is good. There we are. There we are. That's torqued down, and then the same again on the X one. And all we're doing that, just see if I can show you, make sure we can see. So just nipping that up, nipped, that's fine, happy with that. So that's that one. And the other thing we need to do is we need to pop the motor through the gearbox, line it up with the holes, and from the other side we're going to be putting our pan head 3mm by 30mm through. And again, this is me being accurate. I like to make sure that the Tamiya logo is facing the right way. There's a little Tamiya logo here. You know, we're proud of our car. We want it to be good. So pop those through, and pop those through. What I'm doing is actually pop those through from the other side. Just keep your orientation correct. So you've now got your screws poking through there, and we should now be able to locate the motor. And again, proud to be Tamiya. Let's be a proud bunch as we are. And I don't think we're going to need the thread lock on here. It doesn't talk about putting thread lock, so we won't put the thread lock on this time round. If it does vibrate loose, then of course I'll get the thread lock on there. So there we go. So now we've got to line up our screws and our holes so that they line up onto the motor. And again here, so all I do is you can just feel it bite. I just get a couple of threads on there on one screw, and then from the other side, just feel for the hole. And then if you feel the threading, there you go. I can feel it bite. So there we are. We've got them there, and it's now a case of we'll torque that down. There we are. There we are. And again, nip those up so they're nipped up, and nip those up so we've got it nice and tight. So basically I'm tight. I'm tight plus a quarter turn, and I'm tight plus a quarter turn, and that's really not going anywhere. So there you are. That is step 18 complete. Okay, so we are now on step 19, and 19 from the drawing looks quite a busy step here. So as you can see from the drawing, we've got our chassis, and we've got to put in some electronic components. Our electronic speed controller, our servo, our switch. We've got to mount our switch plate, and we've got to mount the other side of the battery compartment. And I don't know whether you can pick this out, but a few other components to mount the switch. So it looks quite a busy step, but in reality it's a relatively straightforward step, mounting these components onto the car. Just a little note for the kit. This is the re-release Subaru Brat, and this is the new and improved TBLE 4S speed controller that comes with this as standard. So an upgraded electronic speed controller. So we're going to see how that performs in the car. So yeah, we got some components that we need for this. We've got from bag A, we've got again those larger self-tapping 4mm by 12mm screws. We needed 2 of those. We also, to mount this servo, we need a couple of the BA4s. These are the darker looking ones. They're 3mm by 10mm self-tapping. These are very obvious because they have a flanged, so they're a flanged self-tapping screw. So we've got 4 of those. We also need from bag A a couple of washers. So they're the 2 washers. They are 2mm washer. There we are. Again, offering up the drawing just to make sure you got the right ones, which you will do. From bag C, we need BC3s, which are 2mm by 15mm long. Again, offering up the drawing just to make sure, and they are, which is good. We also need in step 19A, so you've got a top step and a bottom step of this task. We've got the switch holder, which we got from A7, which is parts tree A7. We've also got the A1, which is the other side of the battery, because we've done one on one side of the car already. We're also going to need the MT1, which is like a rubber spacer. We also got the MT2, which is a rubber switch cap, if you like, just to keep the switch from getting wet. So we've got to screw those all on and put them to the car and the chassis. So we now have all the components. We shall do that next. Right, so here we are. We have our components. So let's do the battery end, which is for the battery compartment. Helps there. Let's pop that in on first. So going to need our Tamiya large screwdriver like we did before on the other side, and we're going to screw the larger of the screws, the BA2s, 4 by 12mm screws, and we're going to screw those through onto the chassis. And these are again quite tough, quite large screws, quite tough screws. So let's pop those into the chassis. So that's that portion, and the battery compartment is now in and ready. So there we are. So just screw those up nice and tight. And again, I've popped you'll notice I've popped on my Tamiya screwdriver the extra torque handle there, because there we are, because we are screwing into the plastic. There we are, good. And we also going to attach the battery holder. This goes on to the same side as this where we've just been. So this is going to go onto the chassis, onto these 2 holes here, onto these. Slightly smaller screws, but these are the ones with the flange onto them. So what we can do here is, because the battery holder is an elongated hole, what we can do is just to help us a little bit more, we can pop the flange screws into the holes first, so that we can get a few threads onto them first. So I'll do one on there and then do another on the other side, so into the other hole. So again, just like to make sure they're straight. Take your time with this. torque these down, and what we do is going to wind these screws in to approximately the thickness of the plastic. So just going to wind them in so they're approximately there, at an estimate about that, and then judging, I'm judging by eye here, so wind these in. So we've got our screws. Now all we need to do is line this up, and it should just flick through. Actually, I was somewhere near. Snug fit, slides on. That's now slid on, and you can see that. So if I turn the car, you can see here, and all we've got to do now is nip those up. And again, line that screwdriver. Oh, I'll use my thumb to help me there. There we are. And we're nice and tight on that one, and on the same again, and it's just resting the car there. There we are, that's nice and tight. So that is our battery holder onto the car now. And what we're going to need to do next on this subsection of step 19 is pop our servo into our frame, and the speed controller is attached to the side of the servo. Okay, so carrying on with step 19, we now need to mount the servo and the electronic speed controller into the chassis of the car. And I've just been doing some thoughts on the mounting of the electronic speed controller. So we're going to mount the speed controller on the side of the servo, like it's saying in the drawing. And you do get in the kit some double-sided tape to do that. However, got a slightly stronger double-sided tape than the one that comes with the kit. This is a double-sided tape that you can get. It's like number plate tape, double-sided number plate tape. This is a Gorilla one, really strong, and should hold up to any vibrations at all. So I'm just taking the backing off of here. Hopefully it's all in camera shot. Just using my knife to take the backing, and that takes there we are, and that reveals the backing. There we are. We'll pop that there, and we're going to take our servo, and I've decided when mounting it in here, I'm going to have the cables loomed in the center here so that they're out the way. There's not lots of space in the chassis, so that's what I've decided to do. So I'm going to mount this on the side of the servo, side on. Servo, remember, is with the splines down towards the front, so make sure you get that correct. We're going to, the servo sort of sits in onto these rails, so we just want to bring that just below it, just again lining up by eye, make sure it's nice and straight, and we shall double-sided tape onto there like that, and that is now on there, and I'm just pushing a little bit of force on there just to get that tape to bond across the whole of the surface, and it's this straightforward like that. There we are. So let's pop those flanged 3mm by 10, I think they were, if I remember rightly, they were flanged, the BA4s, yeah, 3mm by 10. Let's pop those back into there, and we've got those in place. There we are, the other screw as well, pop that in there. There we go. So we kind of got everything we need in place, and we'll screw that through. There we go. It's nice and tight. It's nice and tight. And there we are. That is now into the car. And we are there. Good. So, and we are now on the second half of step 19, and we're going to mount the switch. We've got everything we need to mount the switch with these components. The switch is in the diagram mounted from underneath, like this. Again, looking at some fellow YouTube advice is again for this chassis, the RV chassis, so that's the Frog and things like that, which is shares the same chassis. They mount the switch this way round instead, with the on position that way, just in case it gets knocked. Although I'm fairly inclined to think that you're not going to get much knocking here anyway, but I like the idea of the switch being up into the bodywork as well. And so we'll do that. We'll mount it the other way round, and yeah, that's going to be the next step. Okay, so here's our switch. So I've positioned the switch in the off position, so I know where the off and on is. And luckily for us, the Tamiya, it labels it up for us as well, which is really nice. Again, that little touch. And what we need is, we're just going to sort of reverse of the diagram. So the MT1, that goes on the switch first, like that. And that's now going to go onto the top side of the mounting bracket. Then we need, on the other side here, we need our MT2, which is our switch cover, because we want to be a little bit more sealed and splash proof, if you like. So that's going to mount on here. And then we've got our A4, which actually also has the on and off engraved onto it. So I know my off is towards the front of the car, so that's going to go on there, and that's going to mount inside there, and it'll just mount inside there, which is just nice. And then we're going to take our longer screws, our BC3s, our 2 by 15mm screws, and we've sort of kind of got to feed it through the holes in the MT2, and find the holes in the MT1, and then find the hole into the switch. There we go. And you kind of squashing, just sort of gently squashing the rubber of these together, and there we are. I think we're there. And just check to make sure the switch operates. There we are. All I'm now waiting for is for my receiver. So got my receiver coming, and once I've got my receiver coming, we can then sort out the cabling and pop the receiver at the top, on top of here. But effectively that is step 19 complete.